Ladies and gentlemen, do you remember those nights in Neverwinter? I do, and I think it's time to revisit them. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Kagekaze, and we're going to be taking a look at the Neverwinter beta, Neverwinter Online. This is a free-to-play MMORPG by Cryptic, the same guys that brought you City of Heroes, Champions Online, and of course Star Trek Online. Being published by Perfect World Entertainment, the same gents of course that did Star Trek Online, but also such games as Raiders, Torchlight, Blacklight Retribution, and even Rusty Hearts. I've mentioned that one a couple times, that's a fun one. So that means they're basically under their banner and they are using their online currency for this game. If you're not familiar with Perfect World's currency rate, you basically get 100 of what they call Zen for every dollar. So, with that, we can take a look here at what we've got. You can see at the beginning, now I'm not sure if this is going to be like this in final product, but it looks like they only give you 2 character slots here. There are Founders packs that you can buy at their website. I believe right now the maximum I heard is 3, but don't quote me on that. I haven't looked at the Founders packages in a bit. You can, of course, buy more slots as you go. Have to get in the game to show you the price. You can rename characters after you've created them. As you can see, that costs about 400 Zen, so about $4 to rename a character. That's, whew, wow. Let's just say I hope you pick the name that you want right away. There is a Foundry here. I don't know what this is just yet. I believe this could be something in line with player-created content, and you'll see some hints of that in the game as I go forward. But unfortunately, right now, it is not working. But let's go ahead and take a look at some things we have here, such as the options. There's actually quite a bit here. Unfortunately, the keybinds won't show up here until I get in-game. So here, this looks pretty sparse, but there's quite a bit of keybinds you can change. Audio options. You can basically change the settings for any individual part of the game that you want, from overall to effects to music, ambience, the interface itself, voices, etc., etc. Moving on to video, this quite surprised me, especially considering, free-to-play game, having all these options available to you. So you've got the different windowed modes, of course. You can set a brightness on the fly, aspect ratio, everything here, but you have an advanced video settings here, and it just goes on and on. What amuses me, though, is that you've got things like world texture quality. It says it's at 100%, but the slider is sitting right here, so I could move it up to 200%. I'm not sure what's up with that. If you're going to have a slider with a percentage, what's the point of having it over 100? I'm not quite sure. I'm just going to leave it alone for now. I'm not sure if it's quite intended for that. Now, another thing here, I missed this in audio. There is voice chat that's going to be in this game. I haven't tested it out, so I don't know how good it is. Hopefully they do a good job here, because I can tell you from playing World of Warcraft, when Blizzard implemented their audio system, it wasn't that good. It was pretty crap, actually. So I'm hoping they do a decent job there, because having a voice chat system in a game like this can be quite handy, especially because, unlike most MMOs, well, actually, a lot of MMOs are kind of going this direction. So let's just say that the game is very action-oriented. So you're going to see that having that combination of voice chat with your active abilities is going to be very nice. You can change many things about your interface. It doesn't look like they will be active here. We'll have to go into game for that. But I can tell you that you can pretty much rearrange your entire HUD. So this video here is we're going to go over some of the basic character creation and all the stuff you can expect from the start of the game. And maybe go over a little bit of the intro. But let's look at the character creation, because this is massive. I'm going to go to new character. Of course, you can pick a zone. There's only one zone right now for this closed beta weekend. And you have different races: dwarves, humans, half-orcs, wood elves, half-elves, tieflings, and halflings. And there's even a coming soon here, which could be anything at this point. And you can choose between male and female. Anytime you pick a race here, you'll notice at the bottom it will tell you what you can expect. It will give you a little description about the race, and it will give you the 3 things that they do well. So if I go to Dwarf, you can see they have Stand Your Ground. You have resistance to knock and repel effects. The ability scores, they gain +2 to Constitution and have a choice of either 2 to Strength and 2 to Wisdom. And they have Cast Iron Stomach, which increases damage resistance to damage over time effects. Moving on to humans, these are the most versatile characters of the bunch. You have versatile defenses, which increase defenses by 3%. Ability scores +2 to any ability score of your choosing. And heroic effort, you gain an additional heroic feat point at levels 10, 15, and 20. Half-Orcs will have +2 to Dex and can either choose +2 Constitution or +2 Strength. They have Furious Assault, which increase critical hit damage by 5%. And then Swift Charge, where they gain a 10% bonus to run speed for 3 seconds when you enter combat. Occurs once every 20 seconds. Moving on to Wood Elves, we have Elven Accuracy, increases critical strike chance by 1%. They gain +2 to Dex and a choice of 2 to Intelligence or 2 to Wisdom. And they have Wild Step, where you have a 10% resistance to effects that will slow your movement. Half-Elves have... Dileante. Okay, grants +1 to non-class ability scores. Ability scores get +2 to Constitution and a choice of Charisma or Wisdom. And Knack for Success. You are just naturally better at many facets of life, including giving you +1% Deflect, +1% Critical Severity, and 1% Gold Find. Yes, half-elves, they find themselves to be superior, do they not? Tiefling, these guys are pretty interesting. You've got Blood Hunt. You deal additional 5% damage to targets below half health. You get +2 Charisma and a choice of Constitution or Intelligence. And Infernal Wrath. Whenever you are hit, you have a 10% chance to lower the power of the attacker by 5% for 5 seconds. And lastly, Halflings. Nimble Reaction. Small stature and quick movements grant you 3% chance to deflect incoming attacks. They get +2 Dex and a choice of Charisma or Constitution. And they are bold. Their fearless nature increases their resilience to crowd control effects by 10%. So as you can see by all of these, even though we haven't gone into the class selection yet, you can see that each one of these is fairly good at any different class. Like, for example, if you wanted to be a tank, you could be easily a Tiefling, which gives you the ability to reduce the damage of the person attacking you. Plus, you get additional Constitution from picking them. But you could always go to Human, which has increased defense, and of course more ability scores. You could really pick whatever you want in regards to this. I mean, some of them are going to be probably better picks than others, but Swift Charge, to give you a little bit more movement speed to get out of the way, and the fact that they have +2 Constitution on their pick as well. I'm going to go ahead and make a Rogue. And I'm going to tell you that part of my decision to make a Rogue was very difficult at this point, because I originally was going to go with Half-Orc. When I thought that to myself, I'm like, wow, a Half-Orc Rogue just doesn't... I mean, it's possible, certainly, but in my mind, the sneaky type just doesn't seem to fit Half-Orc characters. But the reason being is because you got +2 Dex for being an Orc, and getting additional Strength is quite nice for additional damage. Not only that, but you get the Swift Charge. Movement speed when you enter combat is great for a character that needs to be in melee and moving fast, and the critical damage increase. It's really hard to pick what I would go for this type of character. Human was certainly a possibility with the ability scores and the heroic effort. Wood Elf was a choice due to movement reduction, to be resilient to slows, and the chance that they get increased critical strike and, once again, dexterity. So if you're going to go pick a character, and you're trying to make a character here, one thing I would suggest is take a look at the class and what their primary attributes are and what you think you want to do with them. So at this point, I'm just going to kind of not worry about this at the moment. I'm going to hit continue so I can go to the class selection. So you can see here up at the top where we are in the character creation part of this. And this game has a total of 5 classes. The 6th is not announced, and we don't know how many more they're going to add. So we've got a Trickster Rogue. We've got a Devoted Cleric, a Control Wizard, a Guardian Fighter, and a Great Weapon Fighter. So you can see we've got a couple melee, a Cleric that can do casting, a little bit of everything, healing, melee as well, a Wizard, the only true caster of the bunch, and of course the melee Rogue. And as we look at this, we can see what abilities you get when you pick. I'm not going to go into that too much yet, because what I'm going to do is go into ability scores. And here's where you're going to see what your primary stats are going to be. I have Dex, Charisma, and Strength as what they consider to be my primary and secondary stats. And you can see that they have a slightly different color for each of these. So once you get an idea of what class you might want to make, then you could probably go back to race selection. And I think It would be kind of nice to just be able to go back and forth between them at will. I mean, you can obviously do that by doing the continue and previous. When you're doing a game like Dungeons & Dragons, it's kind of nice to have all the options in front of you so you know what you're getting into, because a lot of people like to maximize their potential while minimizing their weaknesses. And you can certainly pick whatever race or class combination you want, because none are really going to be bad choices. Because just because you're not maximizing your primary stat doesn't mean it's going to be bad, because you'll be more well-rounded. So for the sake of this, I'm going to make like a character, like I've already played through as a rogue. I'm just going to go ahead and recreate the character I had, just so I can show off the game a bit. So I went with Halfling. Due to the nimble reflexes getting some deflect, so it'll be easier to survive. I get Dex naturally, and Charisma and Constitution are good choices. Constitution will keep me alive longer, and Charisma is a secondary stat for Rogue, so I figure, okay, I'll do that. I'll get this one. Now, unfortunately, I'm talking about the stats like Strength, Charisma, Wisdom, Intelligence. The game at this point doesn't really tell you what those stats are. Now, if you've played D&D before, you have a rough idea of what they're for, but this is an online MMORPG, which means those stats are not necessarily what you might expect, and they might not be handled the same way. The game really doesn't handle die rolls and things like that like you might expect in, say, a D20 system or anything like that. It's kind of opaque as to what is going on in the background. You really don't know. It plays a lot like a standard MMO in that way. It's not like some of the other games that have come out, like maybe the old Neverwinter or some of the newer Dungeons & Dragons games, which you would see the dice rolls and things like that. So let's go ahead. We're going to go with a female halfling. I'll just go over the classes real quick before we pick our rogue here. We've got the Guardian Fighter. This is the tank of the bunch. So right now, due to the fact that there are very few archetypes to choose from, you can tell that we've got one tank, one healer, we've got a caster, obviously, and then 2 melee. So the fighter gets guard. In this game, there's a dodge mechanic. And the tank here will replace his dodge with a block mechanic. So rather than dodging attacks, you're going to be blocking them and taking them head on, making you a perfect tank. You have Enforced Threat, where you can taunt nearby foes and you cause them to attack. And you recover your guard meter. Now this right here, this Fighter's Recovery, this is what they call a daily ability. It's kind of like a super move. You're going to be gaining charge, and again, I'm going to be going all this in great detail, but I want to show you what kind of abilities you have. In this, you have Fighter's Recovery. You steady yourself, and you gain vigor for the fight to come, temporarily healing for a large portion of whatever damage you do. So it's kind of a life leech system. Lastly, this is your it's like a passive that allows you to gather information. This is almost like a gathering profession, really. And each class has something different and unique. I think there's only a couple shared. In this case, the Guardian Fighter gets Dungeoneering. You detect secret doors and triggers, and you can see traps. And you collect artifacts to sell doing that. This system is what you'll be doing crafting with. And unfortunately, I can't go into crafting because it's not implemented yet. But I can tell you that in any dungeon that you're exploring, you'll be using one of these primary assets, and you'll be gaining items from it. So Dungeoneering is great. You can see traps, you can see secret doors, and you can't disarm the traps, but because you're a tank, you can just block it as you go through it, which is great. Moving on to Great Weapon Fighters, they have a sprint ability that enhances run speed, allowing you to rush to your targets or to avoid attacks. While sprinting, you ignore speed-reducing effects. You have a punishing charge. You rush towards the enemy, passing through them and striking them along the way. The ultimate ability you get is Avalanche of Steel. You leap into the air and come down with a crashing force that leaves your enemies prone, pretty much knocking them down. And they too get Dungeoneering. They can see traps and secret doors. Of course, because you're not a tank, you can't really block them, so be careful. Control Wizards. The casters start off with, of course, Magic Missile, which you will cast into the darkness. You blast your enemies with arcane damage, darkness, or whatever. The third strike hits 3 times, and it adds a stack of Arcane Mastery. So unfortunately, I don't know how that works yet. I'll be going over some of the classes, so maybe we'll be able to see that. Mage Hand. Punch your target with an Arcane Fist, dealing high damage and interrupting abilities. The ultimate being Arcane Singularity. Call into existence a massive singularity. And they get Arcana. You collect magic items to sell, and you can interact with arcane objects. The interactions often give you a bonus to combat skills. So as you can see, these are going to be gathering professions or ways to get stuff in the game and to also possibly get bonuses. Devoted clerics start with Astral Change. Toggles between enemy or ally version of your right-click power, so you can see that the cleric will be able to be offensive or defensive. So you don't have to make a cleric that heals if you don't want to, which is great. You can, a healing word, apply a regeneration effect to both you and your target. It has 3 encounter charges, and it recasts an effective ally will extend the duration. The Divinity part of it is you will your direct heals your target as well as applying regeneration. In addition, it does not consume encounter charges. So that obviously not making sense in my head right now because I don't know the class just yet. These things get fleshed out as you play the character. Flame Strike, the ultimate, raises a column of holy fire that knocks targets upward and then splashes down in a wider area, and their gathering profession is religion. You can interact with religious objects, and they can often give you a bonus to combat skills. We're going into the Trickster Rogue. So Trickster Rogues obviously get stealth, which is untranslated for some odd reason, but hey, I think we all know what stealth is. Bait and switch, you jump backwards, dropping a decoy in your place, and any enemies that are near the decoy will attack it instead of you, and you gain action points when the decoy is hit instead of you. If you're stealthed, it refills your stealth meter, and it doesn't remove you from stealth. Now this is what kind of interests me in the Rogue and why I wanted to start with it, is because there's some really interesting mechanics here on the Rogue and the stealth mechanic. Lastly, the ultimate is Bloodbath. You flash around the battleground, slashing your foes so quickly that you cannot be targeted. That's great. And you get Thievery. You can see and disarm traps, preventing you from taking damage or getting stuck. Now, in the world, there will also be things that you can gather. They're like thieves' kits or boxes that you can only you can open. So just like any other class, every class has got a gathering profession, which is great. And this is, of course, the only class that can disarm. Now, what I can tell you from all of these, from the Dungeoneering to Arcana, Religion, and Thievery, there are kits in the game that you can use to gather from these nodes if you're not that class. So you have a way of doing that, but they are one-time use disposables. Alright, gone on a bit long for that one. I apologize for that, but we're going to move on here. We now look at our ability scores. And what I can tell you about this is, as much as it looks like a standard D&D ability score system, it is not as random as it would appear. You can re-roll the scores over and over and over again, but from what I've seen, there is something at play here that limits how many points you get, prevents you from having scores that are too low. Like, for example, at any one point, you can only have one ability that's at an 8. You will never have more than one that is at an 8, from what I can tell. And so if you re-roll, what you're usually trying to do is get your primary stat as high as you can get it. Unfortunately, once again, the game does not really tell you what this stuff does. Strength measures a character's physical power, constitution, health, stamina, vital force, hand-eye coordination, reflexes, and balance. It's still not really telling you what they do, because there are very real stats added to these scores. So you can go with trying to get a really high primary score or trying to be more well-balanced. So like, for example, I have a +2 dex bonus because of my class. So the highest you can roll is obviously 18. If you're D&D, you know that. So 18 plus 2 is 20. So here we have, I found the roll that gives me 20 to my dexterity. And as you can see, the consequence is having 8 intelligence. My 2 secondaries, strength and charisma, are both at 13. At this point, I can choose my racial ability of having either charisma or having constitution. Because charisma is a secondary skill, I'll be going with that. But just so you can see here, if I roll again and we get away from the 20 here, you can see it goes down to 19. And even though I've lost only 1 point in dex, you'll notice I gained 3 points in intelligence. It went from 8 to 11. So I can choose to scale back my dex just a tiny bit in order to become more well-rounded in gaining intelligence. Now, when I was first looking at this, usually intelligent characters, when you're playing by D&D rules, will get more skills or abilities at character creation. In this game, it doesn't seem to do that, so I wouldn't worry too much about ruining your intelligence. And as far as I can tell, there's nothing regarding conversation options or anything like that for these scores. So you're pretty much looking at all combat values here. So I'm going to re-roll. There we go again. We got 20. And we can see that I've got the 8 intelligence. Let's go ahead and see if I can't find, there we go, 20 dex and then 8 wisdom. That's perception and self-awareness. I would rather have the wisdom than the intelligence, to be honest with you. So you can see here, do it again. And you can just keep re-rolling until you get to the rough stats that you want, and they're all pretty much close to the same, honestly. You're going to roll through, I think, 5 or 6 different sets of these scores, and that's pretty much it. I mean, they could be a little bit random, but the way it protects you from getting low scores, like here I can get low Constitution. I would probably want to have a bit more Constitution because I could really use some more health, so I'll go up to 20 Dex. Let's just go ahead and maximize it again, and we will get the low Intelligence, I think. Let's see if I can get that to happen. As you can see, I got to do it a couple times. There's multiple things to go through. It very well could be random, but I'm pretty sure that it's random presets and not completely re-rolling everything. As I never see anything drop super low. You can never have more than one ability that's 18 or more. So, yeah, it doesn't look like I'll be able to do it with wisdom or with Intelligence as my lowest stat. Let's just give me Wisdom again. No, there it is. There we go. Low Intelligence. We're going to go ahead and accept this. Now, this is huge. There is so much character customization, and this surprised me for an MMO. So you can hide your armor so you can see what your character looks like under the armor, and you can see what your class-specific armor would be. There are several presets available. As you can see, change your height and character's appearance. But the meat and potatoes of this is where it gets impressive. If you click on Customize it, I'm going to try not to spend a ton of time here, because I know on other games where I've had a lot of options, I did spend a lot of time on it. I just want to at least show off the kind of options that are available. Many different types of head shapes, as you can see, some very subtle. Many different types of hairstyles are available here. Obviously, eyes. And what's interesting is the eyes, you get a choice between the natural, a full blind look. You can pick either eye to be blind, have some kind of hurt look here, or of course pick one or the other. So there's some interesting options there. 3 different types of eyebrows, different complexions, including even looking elderly if you really want to, rugged, old, cute, whatever. Several tattoos, which you can choose one eye or the other, or whatever have you. You can choose to have none. Scars are available. So if you really wanted to, like, something I know Mass Effect didn't do is, like, say I wanted a scar over one eye, which you could do in that game. But I could also go up to the eye once I've picked which one I want to have a scar on, and then I can just say, hey, I'm blind in that eye. And as you can see there, the eye gets kind of a milky white complexion to it. Of course, I could say, hey, I got a scar on this eye, but that one's blind. That's funny. But there you go. You've got several different options there. And then here, obviously, lots of sliders. I don't feel comfortable moving these. I always manage to make ugly characters when I mess with these, because there's just so much you can do. And this, honestly, I'm just going to show this off real quick because this is hilarious. Well, you've got different tonings, obviously. But let's look at the body scaling. Look at this. Even bust size is scalable. I'm a halfling, don't expect too much, okay? Here's what surprised me. Heels. Look carefully, there it is. See, look at that. Up and down. You can actually choose heel size. Even nail length, look at that. I got some... Look at those nails, oh my goodness. Wow. And that just... This right here impresses me, that you can put whatever amount of detail into your character that you want. It's all up to you. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and continue from here. We've got our appearance, and even further, look at this. You can pick your origin. Pick where you were born. Were you born in Waterdeep, Baldur's Gate, maybe North Dark? Where do you want to be born at? Once you pick that, you can come down here, and you can see you can pick different locations, such as a Blazing Sword Recruit, Enigmatic Vigilante, Hunter of Monsters. I'll just do the recruit, so basically I'm an adventurer. And then you can pick your deity affiliation. Amantur, Chantea, I'm probably saying these wrong, Corellian, Kelemvor, Selûne, Torm, Tempest, Sune, Sylvanas, Moradin, all sorts of choices. Now what these affect, I can't tell you, unfortunately. As far as your origin and your religion, this doesn't seem like a game that really plays into your personal story a lot, being an MMO. You have to remember that being an MMO, even though there's a persistent world out there, so it's kind of hard to really give you that personal, in-depth story that you might be expecting from most RPGs. Now, there is a system where you can pray to favor to your god to get bonuses every hour, and this can affect what you get from that. I don't know that for sure, but that would be my guess. Alright, that's it. I've basically created my character. I can create a biography for myself if I want, and this is the last, are you sure this is everything that you want? And I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to begin. Hey, look, I leveled up for character creation.